Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business. Red Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution, and we're committed to giving voice to the truth, living with courage, and taking action. It's Tuesday, March 10th. It's 10 a.m. Central, and I am Danielle Walker, and my trusty co-host, the watchdog-in-chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander, is down at the legislature this morning fighting for you. He is testifying against a bill that would rob citizen journalists of a very important tool, which is one-way recording of conversations. So he'll be back with us probably Thursday and he can report on how that went. But we are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. You can always catch us later on our audio-only platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcast. And I am honored today to have retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Blaine Holt back with us. We had him on a few weeks ago, and it was such a fantastic conversation. He self-identifies as an irascible disruptor who's now CEO of Alchem AI, and he is a fearless voice on national security, geopolitics, and he cuts through the noise. He's a commentator on Newsmax, which is why we can't see him live because of a contractual obligation he has to them. And I think most importantly, he's the host of Dangerous Intellectuals, which is an incredible podcast on the biggest issues facing America today. If you have not caught his latest one with Susan Kokenda, you need to prioritize that. Today, we are going to talk about how we are in a place where national sovereignty, geopolitics, and economic power are intersecting and perhaps some might say colliding. And we'll get into the war in Iran and why this is a defining moment for President Trump. Welcome to the show, General Holt. It's such a great honor to have you back today.
Danielle, thanks for having me back, and my best to Chris and his mission as he goes and tries to fight nonsense. And I apologize to all of your viewers and listeners about my video problems, but you know what? Every day we try to work on this, and we're going to get there. And then I appreciate the words on Dangerous Intellectuals. There's a couple of groups that are talking about trying to help take Dangerous Intellectuals up to the next level, and
yeah.
I'm really excited about that. But it's a great place to talk about a lot of different subjects. Like last week, before Susan, I told everybody, hey, let's take a break from the war and talk to a really cool photographer who does headshots and how he sees the world differently than the rest of us. And I didn't know how people would respond, because they were like, no, we want to see geopolitics. Tell us about what's happening in Iran. And in fact, it was the opposite. It was, oh yeah, this is cool. This is something different.
It's a soothing white pill, right? It's so nice to have those moments in the midst of, we can't constantly be inundated with this stuff.
Oh no, I can't. I mean, if I did that, a lot of people are like, how do you have a sense of humor through all of this stuff? And how do you kind of, you're bringing this gallows humor to TV on Newsmax and stuff. And I'm like, Listen, every once in a while, I have to go off on a tangent to go study something else or be silly or read a cool book that has nothing to do with anything serious. That's why I think, my technology company, one of them is Alchemizerian, is the capstone. And it's fun to work on something that can help everybody technology wise, but it has absolutely zero to do with the dark forces that think they're going to close down on us. And the joke is on them. They're really not going to.
No, they're not going to. In fact, let me read the scripture of the day before we get into wherever the Lord leads us today. Today's scripture is Psalm chapter 34, verses 1 through 4. Yeah, well, actually 1 through 5. It says, Lord, I'm bursting with joy over what you've done for me. My lips are full of perpetual praise. I'm boasting of you and all your works. So let all who are discouraged take heart. Join me, everyone. Let's praise the Lord together. Let's make him famous. Let's make his name glorious to all. Listen to my testimony. I cried to God in my distress, and he answered me. He freed me from all my fears. Gaze upon him, join your life with his, and joy will come. Your faces will glisten with glory. You'll never wear that shame face again. And I think that's exactly the same thing that we were just talking about, right? The enemy loves to use discouragement and fear to get us into apathy and to stop us from moving forward with the work and the calling the Lord's given us. And I think those two tactics are heavily at play right now in the psychological war that's waging around us. I mean, the way to overcome the onslaught of discouragement and fear is right here in this passage. David encourages all who are discouraged, saying, let's praise the Lord together. He says that he cried to the Lord in his distress, and the Lord answered him and freed him from all his fears. So this is the antidote for discouragement and fear. Turn off the discouraging and fear-inducing voices on the TV, on the podcast, and on social media. Refuse to partner with anxiety, fear, or discouragement that those voices stir up. Turn your gaze to the Lord. Remind yourself of his goodness and sing his praise. I love your point about getting silly. Get together with other believers and praise him together. Tell each other encouraging stories of what the Lord's doing in your life, because he's always doing something good. Join your life with the Lord and joy will come. His presence, his reality, his word must become greater and louder and more real than the info war. Then our faces will glisten with his glory, and we won't be walking around with a shame face anymore. And General, I listened to your conversation. I mentioned this to you with Susan Kokenda, and even though the topics were very heavy and very consequential, I just have to say it did not stir up fear. You both have a very calming presence, even while you talk about very heavy, weighty topics. How do you stay grounded and keep your peace in the midst of this? And I think you kind of gave. It's funny that we were going in this direction, whether we knew it or not.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think where you started your show and where you always start your show in Scripture is a really good place to get your compass set for the day. My reading this morning is very complementary to what you were reading in Psalms. So Paul's letter to the Ephesians 4:2, I think is so appropriate, which is remember to be humble and gentle. And I've made a meme out of that and put that up on my social today because it inspired me. But the big thing about that is when storms come, and I'm going to relate this to my military career a little bit. When storms come, if you want to be a freak out artist, you can. But and people get scared. Shoot, I get scared sometimes. Normally, it doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with a family member that I think is going in a real bad direction, and then I get scared for him.
Yeah.
But if you can get that compass back and go, you know what, no matter what that anxiety level is in me, what I can control is I can choose my attitude to all of this stuff. And choosing your attitude is a big choice, because if you just want to be blown around by the wind, okay, fine. But if you're humble and kind and gentle in a storm, people will be drawn to you. People will be attracted to you. People will say, and I, back to my military career, flying a C-17 around the world was something I greatly enjoyed. What a gift. God basically let me have dessert first in my life. So here, go fly jets, go have a great time, have a big adventures, and now I got work for you to do. So when I was flying C-17s, occasionally, the jet wouldn't work properly. We'd have an emergency, and you've got this choice as the aircraft commander with a crew who's looking to you for guidance,
Yeah.
leadership. How are we going to get through this? And if you want to just go, holy crap, it's 3 in the morning over the Atlantic and we got a firelight. Well, now the crew's going to do the same thing. If
Yeah.
he's freaking, we're all going to freak. But if you sit there and you go, you know, we're just fine, and we've got the rest of our lives to figure this out, and it'll be okay. Then people are, oh well, okay, I guess we're going to be calm. And Jesus did that in
Yeah.
what did he do as a raging storm is going on, and they're in the vessel, and the apostles are looking like we're all at the bottom of the sea anytime now, and Jesus is setting the example by going, I'm the savior. I'm kind of in the back of the boat here taking a nap. Maybe you should draw some conclusions there, and that's where you can get to faith. And Susan Kakinda, I think, is one of those souls, and I'm so blessed to know so many of them that are able to analytically pick apart some of this stuff. Nobody's 100% correct because this is some really complicated stuff, this fifth
Right.
generation war stuff. And I'm up for revising my opinion anytime and twice on Sunday in the presence of new information. I also enjoy a good debate. I enjoy a discourse, respectful debate, not a ranting match. Um, but but I think that the types of people that I'm blessed to know come at these things from okay, we see this, we probably are led to take some actions, and we have to avail ourselves of the knowledge, but do understand that that knowledge sometimes can turn into your own kryptonite and make you very toxically sick if you're not rounding yourself out with
Hmm.
other things. So when we start to see humor come into the equation, I was on Tommy's podcast yesterday, and I don't know if you know him, but he's a wonderful young man who has me, Kakinda, Luongo, Sasha Kreiner, Mike Ariza. We're all on there all the time in different ways, fashion, or forms.
Okay.
And Ian Burlingame, my good friend in Southern Idaho, and what's going to end up happening is a lot of gallows humor mixed in with, I mean, like last night, me and Tom Luongo were coming to an insight that neither one of us understood, but it was the conversation that sparked it in looking at the we were looking at U.S. politics, and that Schumer seems to be awfully tame these days, and
Yeah.
we were arriving at the hypothesis that is it possible that Schumer now understands that President Trump's strategy is going to run the table, and that this leftist Marxist crap is going to go the way of the dinosaur, and is Schumer really angling to pull back together again what we used to know as the old Democrat Party, and is Fetterman just a lieutenant who's projecting maybe they're going to go back that way? It's who knows, but
Right.
we just kind of came to that as we were stepping through the rubble of what is the DC swamp debate and illegality and everything else nasty. But these are the fun moments in these discussions. And if you come to these discussions with anger, malice, bitterness, you can go find that all over social media and all the comments. You can just go
It's
find all of
true.
it. And there's very wonderful people that are biting off on some of that stuff. I there's a woman follows my Facebook. She's followed me on Newsmax for a really long time. And I guess year ago, when the president had selected Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of War, she took great exception to my colleague Greg Kelly at Newsmax. His
Mm.
comments, he was not especially enthusiastic about that appointment, but she had just recently looked at a post where I had done a segment on Greg Kelly, and she said, "I'm not going to watch Greg Kelly ever since he took apart he's not supporting our Secretary of War, so I'm out, and but I'll watch you on other things." And so we could all engage there, but what I saw as a person who's like, there's a lot of media manipulation out there. And I just wrote her in public and just said, well, every dog has his day. I think if you were to follow Greg right now, you'd see he's in a different position and he's evolved his position. And if I were you, I'd show a little grace and give him another try. And you know what? Normal, back in the COVID days, a person like that might come back with, "Let me tell you something. I'm done with you too, and I'm gonna pour acid on you." And instead, it was the opposite. She was like, "You know what? You're right. Let me go get back into that, and I'll give it a shot."
That's
So,
cool.
humble and kind is a good place to be if you can't figure out what to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And this, I mean, no, you're so right. No one can have it right all the time. And I mean, people like Greg Kelly and yourself, people who have to, are in a position where they're making, I mean, he's making decisions about perspectives all the time. One beautiful aspect, one beautiful thing that I have just embraced lately is choosing not to have an opinion on some things and just
Right.
waiting to see where it goes, or letting the people air their opinions. And you know what, if you don't really have a strongly held opinion, you can weigh those a lot, easier, and maybe with a little less of an axe to grind. It's a very freeing place to be when we suspend our need to have an opinion about everything.
I think that's so smart. One of the things when I was teaching leadership to my young ones when I was running logistics in Europe or in my squadrons, is one of the smartest things you can say as a young officer or a young NCO is, "I don't know."
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I'll go try to find out. People sometimes think that if I don't have an answer, that's gonna cast doubt on whether I'm know what I'm talking about or not. And then I think the other very, very smart thing, I certainly have done it so many times since COVID started and I started going on the air, is be flexible to modify a position in the
Yeah.
presence of new information. And
Yeah.
then I had a blessing on this one podcast I'm telling you about. Or no, this was another episode, same podcast, but a different episode. And we were talking about Operation Gladio, the CIA's color revolutions,
Mm-hmm.
and these types of things. And then I was kind of comparing it to my own experience in Kyrgyzstan, where I was presiding over or dealing with a revolution in that country. And some of the puzzle pieces from back then that I never really reconciled started to fit in while I'm actually sitting on this podcast. And
Wow.
I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. And there I am on the podcast coming to a couple of epiphanies. And I shared what those might be. And I said, when I was a military fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, I started out on a book about my experience in Kyrgyzstan. It's still called, I haven't finished it, it's still called Airmen on the Ground, Hard Truths on Soft Power, and about our experience there to survive all that. And I never finished it. Well, gosh, the Holy Spirit works kind of in interesting ways. Maybe the procrastination was a little bit of a helper because I wrote 2/3 of the book. I have the whole thing outlined, and in had I published it at that time in 2011, it would have started Once Upon a Time, Happily Ever After, and
Mm-hmm.
you would have seen me as the hero in the story, and everything would have been just great. Some great historical anecdotes, and aren't we so clever as airmen to see these things? And now, as we've gone through the last 15 years of stuff and all these new revelations, it's much more about, that story you were in was much more complicated than you understood at the time. And so I probably am going to finish that book now, but it won't be a worthless tomb of, "Hi, I'm Blaine Holt and you can too." It's going to be much more about, "You won't believe this," but it
Yeah.
happened. And I'm going to research it a little bit further and probably dust that off, in my spare time, which I just got gobs of all over the place. Not really, but but we'll keep at it. It's just interesting to come to new realizations. I find it really, it's kind of a gift. It's kind of an old man's gift. Here I am looking down the barrel of being 60 years old in a few months, and I like this secondhand lion's role. I like this being able to look back and go, oh yeah, I didn't have that right. Ah, I didn't have that right either. Man, I'm a mess.
Oh my gosh, I can so relate to that. Before COVID, my life was about foreign policy, and I lived in D.C. and New York doing a lot of work, government affairs work, specific to the Middle East and Africa. So I've looked at that region for a long time, and after COVID and kind of when the awakening started dawning, I was like, oh my gosh, I have been a part of some truly, I mean, you just play a tiny role. It's not like you turned the needle on something bad happening necessarily, but I couldn't even see what I was, a part of. And it's staggering when you step back and say, this machine is massive, and it 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 is powerful. It's powerful. And they use smart people, they use stupid people, they use people with ambition, and they just move them around to do the things. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
It really is, and again, it's so good to have worked in the swamp or the machine that is New York City. I've like you, I've been in both situations, and I liken some of my time in both spots to being led to understand the dark sides of these things. That I remember being face to face with George Soros, or being face to face with Chuck Schumer, Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite books is Joseph Siebel's The Physics of God,
Okay.
and there's so many Christians out there who think if you subscribe to any of this frequency stuff, the Solfeggio frequencies or any of this, you are so outside the lines. You are now in the Hell Express lane. You are, don't you dare say the word universe. And where Joseph Siebel comes together is he goes, no, actually, the science of God is something extremely beautiful, and the physics of God is something extremely exquisite. And so if you think that the frequencies of this world are separated, or something different, or some sort of hocus pocus pagan thing, maybe some people use it that way, but that nothing could be further from the truth. And in fact, some of the medical advancements that have been held back from us would indicate there's a great power there. And so what I would say is the very lowest frequencies being the darkest and the most cautionary, and the highest frequencies being like the verse I spoke of today: be gentle and kind. Get your what about Ephesians 6, the armor of God? Get up on this stuff. Well, there's an equation there that relates to when you get to meet some of these dark folks that I was just talking about before I exhibited some attention deficit disorder. You feel dark energy coming off. And what I would, I'm not saying everybody in our audience is going to have the great pleasure of going and meeting these creepy guys, but
Right.
what I would say is that when your spidey sense or your intuition or whatever you want to call it inside of you, the spirit, whatever you want to label that, when you are in a room or when you are in a place and something doesn't feel quite right and you can't put a finger on it, you just know it's not altogether correct, don't squelch that voice.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing I wish I could have learned earlier in my life, it's that trait to go back and go, this isn't good for me, and I don't even know why, but I know it's not good for me, or I know there's something not good here.
Yeah.
It's like when I was teaching students in pilot training. So there I am in the T-38, the White Rocket. I'm 10 feet tall, bulletproof. I'm the best pilot in the squadron. Just ask me. And then I remember at the tail end of that tour, not always letting the students go so far so that they learn a real harsh lesson. In fact, starting to pull back a little bit. I remember one afternoon in the cockpit, and I had one of my more challenging students, and they just kept diving towards the ground instead of setting up a proper glide path as we're coming. And T-38s is zipping around the pattern at about 300 miles an hour, and so you really don't
Wow.
have a lot of time to figure out what you're going to do. And I remember snatching the jet from him as soon as he'd roll off what we would call the perch, as you're making an angle for the runway. And I just saw the nose get deepened, and I snatched the airplane away and said, "I have the airplane," and pick it up. And then in the debrief, the student goes, Lieutenant Holt, you should have never have taken the airplane away from me. How? I mean, I had everything under control. I was going to land the airplane. And then I said, I'm really at a place where I don't know how bad it's going to be what you're doing. I'm just not going to sit around to wait. So I'm not going to wait around to figure out how this ends. And then I
Yeah.
pulled out a little calculator and said, okay, 4,000 foot per minute descent on the FPM, and then this is there, and I'm doing all these calculations with what we had the jet. You had a 60-degree bank angle. That's what we're going to do there. And then it came out to be like 1.3, and I showed him that 1.3 number. I said, that's how many seconds we had left of life.
Oh
And
my
he is like,
gosh.
okay, I got more to learn.
I submit.
So I mean, when your intuition or your spidey sense is telling you, no, not good, I don't know what it is, well, then step away and spend some time critically thinking about what it is. Go figure it
Yeah.
out. Maybe you never will, but I do remember being around a lot of these types of people, very historic figures, some that are in, have books written about them, vaunting them as heroes, and
Yeah.
I come away with a very different feeling. You're no hero. You're quite the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And we're learning a lot of these truths now, which I find just wonderful. It's a wonderful period in history. The veil, and you heard me say it to Susan Kokinda yesterday on dangerousintellectuals.com, and you heard me say it to Susan Kokinda, which is, I think the camouflage is slipping off the bad guys, the real bad guys. I think it's slipping away, which means they're going to be desperate. It'll get dangerous. But it's so wonderful that there is an awakening and people are starting to go, hey, that doesn't make sense. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Stick with that.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about that a little bit? Because one refrain that I hear lately, which is an interesting one, is I didn't vote for this. The war in
Oh, yeah.
Iran. I didn't vote for this. What happened to the peace president? Can you just maybe address that and give your perspective?
I can. Let me give you a World War II war analogy or a war metaphor before we go into that. So you have a submarine captain. He's an attack sub captain for the United States Navy, and he's trying to evade cruisers on the surface from Japan that have found him. And he is taking the sub at a crash rate of descent into the depths of the ocean at a rate that far exceeds the technical order for the sub, and everybody on the crew knows it. And everybody on the crew is now starting to doubt the old man, and they're feeling the sub creak and crack and pop. But the old man understands that there's two perils. There's the depths, and taking the depths too fast, which could structurally kill them all in the vessel, but he also understands the reality of the depth charges that are now being dumped off those cruisers and trying to find their way down to that sub to kill them all. And he's outrunning those depth charges while delicately balancing the whatever that sub will give him design wise.
Wow.
And then he tells the planesmen to go level with the planes, and they level out. Yes, they've got a little structural damage to the sub. Maybe they've popped a few valves, but then they hear the pops and the booms above them that aren't going to kill them.
Wow.
And I liken that to the global situation today. President Trump inherited a mess. He had a mess the first time through. He's got one now.
Yeah.
He's got a very determined enemy of globalists that want to take down this country as part of their objectives in dominating this planet of ours. So here we are with the battlefield called Iran. You have a president who told us, I'm going to keep us out of unnecessary wars. But everybody missed the word unnecessary.
Yeah.
So So if you have this group of individuals in this country that is hell bent on wanting to destroy this nation with nuclear weapons, and they're going to get them, and you're going to put up with it. And we have a few presidents ago, that made them flush with cash, and they've got terror cells all over our country.
Yeah.
This is a fight that we've got to take. Wait a minute, let's go to the politics of their adversary in Israel, who wants to vaporize this country. And they're, using October 7th. I get the politics of the moment. I understand the passion, but they're going at each other. And if the president doesn't intervene and go at it in a way that threads the needle, meaning I've got to nullify the nuclear possibilities, I've got to help destroy these proxies, I have to raise up the free Iranian people so that they can come back into the world community, I have to temper the zeal of a very upset and angered enemy in the state of Israel. And then I have to recognize that both sides are being manipulated and played by this thing called the City of London, which is the globalists that have been making money off of both sides being in endless war forever. So in other words, the president has disrupted the mother of all business models in doing so. And at the same time, the president, now let's get to my submarine analogy, is challenging the crew of the submarine, his whole political base, America First, MAGA, all these people who are doubting the old man, because he's taking this on, because they're losing the ability with all of the manipulated press and all of the bots out there to say, isn't it a good thing for some future grandchild that I might have that there's no mullahs in this world that want to go kill them simply because they think differently and they're free?
Wow.
So it's hard to get your perspective when you're in the moment and you're hearing the submarine walls crack and pop around you and everything's blowing apart. And what the hell's Trump doing now?
Yeah.
But so we shouldn't envy the burden of command for the captain, and do understand this is very tough work. He could get it wrong. He could get this wrong. But I don't impugn his motives. I don't impugn what he's trying to get done, and I certainly respect the enemies that he's facing.
Yeah.
Now, let me paint for you, and you heard me say it with Susan. We're about, and I do believe, and I have this on a source, we're about to see some very interesting things in this country. We're about to see some accountability get going.
All right.
And I think as you see the veneer and the camouflage slip off the City of London, and we see it every day now. You can't use Diego Garcia, says the UK. You can't use bases in Glasgow, Scotland, says the UK. Lloyd's of London's going to shut down the Straits of Hormuz even if you sunk the Iranian Navy. Yeah, you're offering them insurance, but we're going to tell all these companies if they take the Trump deal, we're going to shut them down anyway. They're showing their true colors, and only a desperate enemy would do that.
Yeah.
So those are signs. Now, when we get to this accountability piece, and you start seeing that, no kidding, the 2020 election not only was stolen, but it was done at such a grand level, and it touches on illegality on both sides of the aisle and foreign influences, and this is going to be here in a matter of days. You watch, just like that submarine crew I'm talking about that leveled off and went, oh, the old man saved us from sheer depth, and only the old man knew this boat better than anybody and how much it could take.
Wow.
And so here's the crew now, the America and the MAGA kids going, oh yeah, sorry. and then they'll all come back and go, yeah, I voted for this. Oh, hell yeah, MAGA for life, and all of that. And so, and here's the cool part. We're at a binary in this country right now. What I just described to you as the optimistic, hopeful, winning path is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, well, we'll get to a thing called July 15th. And July 15th is an important date because that's kind of the no reverse gear on the midterms date. And if we haven't shored up our election integrity, if we haven't held people to account by that time, if we're still mired in wars overseas, if the economy is still a hot mess and we've got enemies bearing down on us, well, then the Republicans who are fake Republicans are going to gladly hand over power to the Democrats. And then the Democrats are going to gladly impeach President Trump. And then the rest of America is going to go, well, we don't accept this new tyranny that you're going to lay on us. And we're going to be in a real problem here in this country. And so what I would say is take heart. The old man could have calculated wrong. The submarine could blow up at any time. There is no guarantees.
Yeah.
But if you have a better plan than President Trump's, if you think you understand the intelligence better, if you think you have a better strategy than the one he's employing to take out the cartels, the mullahs, and extinguishing all City of London funding sources as fast as humanly possible, and then coming back later and revisiting the things that you want revisited, like Jan 6, the Epstein files and all of that. Everything has its proper sequence in a war plan. If you think you've got a better way of doing this, well, gosh, be vocal. Start your own podcast, write a newspaper, run for office, do something. But I do find that people who are really good at throwing rocks without solutions, they're either a technological bot and they're not a real person online, or they're just noise. And if you're just going to be noise, then you're not really helping.
I agree. Now, there's no way I can let us move forward without some trying to dig in on that accountability piece. Are you able to say any more than that, or do you have any predictions about what that might look like?
What I'm hearing is that let's look at things that everybody can see. We can see in most reporting that President Obama has now retained criminal defense counsel for whatever may be coming his way. Others in that senior strata have done the same. The reason that that's so is because the take in Atlanta with all those ballot boxes, the evidence that was gotten, the foreign interference contributions now that foreign countries are making, including, a guest of this nation right now who used to be the leader of a former nation, or of Venezuela, is compelling evidence, and it's putting together a rather 2020 clear picture. Maricopa just got zapped yesterday with federal officials going in and taking evidence out that they knew was there. My understanding is more of that is coming in days. And there will be some rather big announcements over the next 2 to 3 weeks about this type of stuff. It's going to kind of change the deal. Now, this is why it's so important. And I did talk to Susan about this, I think not on my podcast, but somebody else, some other podcast. This is why that's important. Because when you start to see that they have got clear and perfect evidence, and you have been a member of the deep state, you're some little apparatchik down at the cubicle level who thinks that if you just do the bidding, maybe you're ideologically driven to work against the United States because you think that this country is inherently bad and you're going to use your government position to do whatever the hell these the globalist version of the United States is. Okay, fine. But you have to have that sinking feeling when you look at the criminal defense offices that are being engaged in full in DC, that, oh my gosh, maybe they know my name. Maybe they know everything that I've done. Maybe they have everything they need on me. Well, at the lowest levels, that starts to, so none of these people have the money to afford criminal defense attorneys. None of these people can defend themselves with lawfare. And so, and they're not going to be paid magical amounts of money, and there is no defense fund that George Soros is going to set up for them. So then they're left with one thing to save themselves, and that's going to be cutting a deal, telling what they know. Hey, I'd like only 10 years in prison, please. If that's the case, now you have an army going against its own army. Mm-hmm. So now at the top, you have the senior officials, or what I call the senior managers for the City of London stuff. And that would be your Obamas, your Clintons, your Soroses. They're the senior managers. These guys don't sit at the high table. These are not the biggest fish.
Yeah.
Okay, if they've got a problem and they know it, and that accountability might be coming their way, so much so that they're now actually paying attorneys, then they're looking at that middle tier. They're looking at the Rices, the Powers, the Podestas, the Brennans, the middle tier for the U.S. division of this, the middle managers. Well, the middle tier's got a serious problem now, because if the cubicle dwellers are going to cut deals by turning them in, then the seniors, well, they don't deal with things that way. What they do is they just assassinate people.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so you can see the middle tier having a hell of a problem with, I'm either going to be disappeared or some little ankle biter is going to be coming after me.
That's right.
So I might be cutting a deal. In other words, you're looking at an army that is about, if, with the right stimulus, and it's not there yet, but the right stimulus turns them all against each other. If they're turning all against each other, let the enemy destroy itself, and then go round them up and haul them into court. So there's probably very good reason coming through the fog that it's a not so fast world yet on collaring a lot of these people. But I do think that when you get down to the lowest levels, they're starting to figure out that A, they don't have a deal, B, they don't have the money to go ahead and fight this, C, their shadowy overlords are cutting the bait on them and leaving them behind. This is beautiful. And so
It is beautiful.
I am hearing that we're going to see some really good things on election integrity, and that's going to be a vector of attack to get at this stuff. Okay, great, wonderful. Let's see if that happens. And again, if that doesn't happen and we get all the way to mid-July and nothing happens, well then let's brace ourselves. Let's it doesn't mean life is over for us. It means, well, this didn't work. Let's go on to the next thing and try to find something that will work.
Well, if it's true, if that's where we're going, have you done the dangerous intellectual exercise of where does this lead us, right? Like if it's exposed in a real enough, a powerful enough, undeniable enough way, that our elections are fake and rigged, and different people have inserted their or put their will upon the people, then how far does that go? Like you think about, okay, so all of Congress, okay, can they wipe out all of Congress with 2020? Can they wipe out all of our state and local elections because of the same? And I mean, because you and I were talking even off air, I mean, so many people, even at the lower levels, are either corrupt or little, they're used. They're used in some way, whether because of ignorance or assent. They are used to carry horrific bills. I mean, one that I wanted to mention to you with respect to what happened in Maricopa yesterday, there's a bill being brought in Louisiana this session that would make it illegal for poll watchers to take pictures of the voting register, which is the only mechanism by which you can prove that there are ghost voters and you can prove that there are irregularities. Now, Louisiana has already taken the ability for citizens to do exit polling. Our Secretary of State pushed that down and said only bona fide media can do exit polling in the state of Louisiana, except you can file an application with her office if you want to do it, because she's the grand poobah. But this is the kind of thing where you can see these insidious tentacles have gone all the way to the state and local level.
They're going to fight like there's no tomorrow, because for them there is no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they're going to fight to take this country down. And so the types of things you're describing, there's nothing in the Constitution that I've ever found that says bona fide media. But there is the right to redress grievances of your government. And what you're looking at.
General, your sound kind of got pretty low.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
So what you're looking at is a desperate enemy that absolutely no longer cares what it looks like if they're going to go counter Constitution, counter United States. They'd much rather just say, well, we're going to have this illegal law, we'll put it on the books, and then you can go ahead and pay all the money that's required legally to take us all the way to the Supreme Court. They can knock us down at that point. But that's going to give us 3 to 4 years of having our illegal law.
That's right.
So this is the mark of a desperate enemy. We're seeing it. I was talking to you about Colorado. Colorado is now trying to float this thing where citizens can no longer run petitions into the government. I mean, so the point is, it's actually, you get back to um, a military officer's oath to the Constitution. I don't have an oath to a president. I don't have an oath to anything but the Constitution.
That's right.
And so when the Constitution is under threat, foreign or domestic enemies, and these are domestic enemies, then you are compelled as a veteran, an active duty officer, whatever, to support and defend the Constitution. And that means calling stuff out. So, so this is part of what the landscape looks like in the face of a desperate enemy. So what I would say is, yes, in the short term, this is bad, but take heart because in order for you to win a war, at some point in that war, your enemy must become desperate. It's actually part of the process. when somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose, somebody's going to get desperate. You're seeing it with Iran right now. You've got this new city of London creep, Mojtaba, who's the son of the former Ayatollah. And this guy's got 140 million bucks worth of real estate in London, by the way, and the UK doesn't seem to want to help us out with that. But he's proclaimed as the new Ayatollah, and everybody's like, "Well, the regime doesn't look like it's leaving. What's Trump thinking?" The regime's leaving. It's not that. That messaging is not meant for us. That messaging is meant for the Iranian people that we're still in control. Everything's fine here. Nothing to see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're down to 300 missiles and a dog named Rex, but we're okay. And look, we got a new Ayatollah. Well, that's exactly what these local and state legislatures do when they get to the point of desperation. Because I think what's going to end up happening is when we start to peel back the onion on corruption at the national level, it's going to seep very quickly into the state and local levels. I'm sensing some of that here in Idaho. And so what that means is you can't have legislators that they can't possibly allow you to see seedy deals with land developers, corruption, business schemes, pay for play stuff, single source contracting. They can't let you see any of that. Mm-mm. And then the other part is that's a gravy train. They have no intention of ever leaving those seats. Why would they do that? So they're not for free and fair elections. They're not for a government that fears its people. They're not for any of that. They are up for, if you get in my way again, little citizen plebe, not only will we sue you, but I'm going to go ahead and strip you of your property rights, take your water, and do all of that stuff, and I'll just put climate change on it or some damn thing. Go ahead and sue us. We're big, you're little, and it's got to get into the other direction. And so again, it's such an exciting time to be alive because you're in the final stages of the war. Think of how many people in COVID died. They were at their normal end of life, or COVID accelerated that, and they're in the meat of this thing, and they didn't get to be here with us to see that we're coming to these end battles. Whether we win or whether we lose, it is something to be here for these end battles. I've always been the kid who wanted to be at the scene of the car accident to go, wow, look at that. Look what happened. Oh man, this is big. Here comes a fire truck. And this is where I think you want to be. It's when it's so sick. It's so sad when 9/11 happened. And honestly, as a nation, we've got to go back to 9/11 and reinvestigate. Yeah,
but 100%.
But when 9/11 happened, many of us young ones who were trained to be this nation's sword, we just slapped our patches and ran in whatever direction they were pointing. Yeah. You want the Taliban eliminated? Well, watch this.
Yeah.
And we didn't really look back. We like God and country. Trust the chain of command. Everything's, don't ask anything. Let's go. Well, we learned a lot of bad things about that whole war. And there's a lot of veterans today who were right there with me in those early days who are now looking back going, wow, it is so different than how they packaged this to us on those days. And a thorough review means that you really have to hang in there for what I call the final act of all of this. You got to hang in there. You got to keep heart, and you got to understand there are good things that can happen. Do understand that there is no such thing as a predetermined outcome of a war. There's not. So I don't, everybody, a lot of believers are like, you can see the setup. This is Ezekiel 38. It's right here. We're all over. Get your eschatology hat on. We're going. And it's like, before you pack your bags, before you see that third temple rebuilt, you might want to understand that we shall not know the time or the place.
Yeah.
And all that we're seeing could just be a shaking of we gotta right this ship and get this country back together, because we got 100 more years. We got
Right.
500 more years to go to figure this stuff out. But it's going to require, Benjamin Franklin said, it's a republic if you can keep it. Well, that comes to us. And that's the point I made with Susan, or we make with each other all the time in violent agreement, is if you think about the city of London, the British Empire, and honestly that this goes all the way back to the fall of Rome in 476 AD,
Wow.
up through the 1688 9 Years' War, where the throne of England was co-opted. This could well be, on our 250th anniversary, us finally finishing the American Revolutionary War. That what Sam Adams started in a bar may be getting ended here, because a lot of what the enemy did was they just went underground, and they've been manipulating you through bankers and shady deals and co-opted politicians. They've been doing it for generations.
Yeah.
And now we're finally getting to where some truths are coming in. They may not be biblical truths, though, so be careful.
Ooh, that's right. Now, General, the American Revolutionary War not being over, I find that such a fascinating concept. And it's one that has really, it keeps the wheels turning. How in your view, in your violent agreement with Susan Kokenda, how do y'all see that what's required to finish it? You may not know how it ends, but how does it get finished?
Oh, I can give you that in one word: sovereignty. It's sovereignty. We must now assert our sovereignty. We need to make good on the Declaration of Independence. We need to make good on honoring personal, individual, and national sovereignty over debt sovereignty. Because what they did after the Revolutionary War was over, they took one more bite of the apple at the War of 1812, decided they weren't going to overwhelm this country militarily, so they enslaved it with debt. And if you think there wasn't manipulation that took us into the Civil War, you should do some more reading. In fact, a lot of people want to start Civil War reading in 1859 with Douglas and Lincoln. Go backwards, go to Buchanan, start reading there. Look at Buchanan's relationships, and then look at how debt was resolved after the Civil War was over, because massive loans taken out from the Bank of England. Oh, guess what? On both sides. and so what this created, this would spawn 50, 60 years later, the not just going into World War I, because that's complete manipulation as well, but then Woodrow Wilson, who is the Obama of his day, who that academic came to town and did whatever the hell the globalists wanted. And so this is where the central bank comes from. This is where the Jekyll Island 6 come from. This is where your Titanic goes to the bottom of the ocean. This is where we have a shady thing passed called the 16th Amendment. Nobody can prove how that was passed legally. The 17th Amendment, the way that we should have been picking our senators, was removed from us. And then you get to an exponential explosion of Supreme Court decisions that are basically there to usurp the original Constitution. So it's which Constitution of the United States do you adhere to? The small one, about 103 pages, I think, 88 to 103, somewhere in there, or the 4,890 page behemoth that represents all of the Supreme Court justice rulings over the top of this belabored Constitution that simply says we have inalienable rights from our Creator, that every single politician, not every single, that's terrible, I'm embellishing. Okay, many politicians on both sides of the aisle are trying to convince you otherwise, that your rights come from the state. Look at what Mamdami's telling the New Yorkers right now. I'll decide what kind of privileges you get. I'll decide what kind of rent you're going to charge. I'll decide whether you even get to have property or not. And he's not alone, and it's not just a Democrat thing. So This is the battle. It's a great battle. This is a great fight. A lot of people, I've heard many people going, I wish that I had been born at the time of the Revolution of America and being there at Tun Tavern to watch the United States Marine Corps born, or being on the deck of that ship and throwing the tea overboard, or at Lexington and Concord running guns. And it's like, okay, that's what you want? Yeah, I would have loved to have done that. Okay, fine. Then just open your eyes, look around 2026, and you're right there. You're here. This is what this is. But we have sons of liberty, daughters of liberty that need to understand where to grab their shovel or where to grab their musket and how to use it. Your musket may look a whole lot like a laptop. Your musket may look a whole lot like a city council meeting that you could speak for 3 minutes at. Your musket might be going down to the state capitol and being an ankle biter to your representative. Could be that. Do it. Do it. It's a republic if you can keep it.
Yeah.
But we may not be out of this revolution yet. But if you set your compass after your creator on your sovereignty and your freedom that your creator gave you, I think it all falls into place.
General, that is so beautiful. And if you have a few more minutes, I'd love to dig into a little bit about the debt slavery. I'm so interested to know how, okay, we know the creature from Jekyll Island. We know that the Fed is illegal. We know that we are being robbed blind. How does that get shifted? And I also want to just throw something else in there in case it's something for you to grab onto. You mentioned soft war earlier in the conversation. Are you familiar with Jason Lowry's work on soft war and Bitcoin, and does that have a role to play in this?
Yeah, on Lowry's, I only at a very, not even skin deep level, familiar with where Lowry's what he's been writing on, but what I can say on Bitcoin, I would be very cautious before I saw cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, as the panacea of what the new economy is going to look like. I can see a new financial system is going to replace this current one. This is a Ponzi scheme that has run its course because the financialists can't get any more collateral. Their big idea was, we'll conquer and balkanize Russia, we'll get the world in on this World War III concept, and then we'll take $75 trillion in natural resources from the Russians, and we'll be right back in business. And that's oversimplifying it, but I think it just makes it easy for point of discussion.
Yeah.
The whatever the new financial system is, will it have digital elements? Yes, I believe it will. Is there a fight ahead for us after this current fight to make sure that social credit scores and ultimate tracking and surveillance is not a part of our world? Yes, we're going to have to fight that, and we may actually even be fighting the Trump administration at the end of his term for that, because he's got some interesting nerds around him. But that's not today's fight. But the debt slavery piece is just, I do think, even without a macroeconomics background, many people are starting to understand that with their complete and utter control of the financial cash supply in this world, being able to inflate currency or deflate currency. They inflate currency, they've just taken you out of all your savings. They can remove property from you. They can, and what we're told and anointed on, evangelized on is, these are just normal economic cycles, and we're going to send you to college so that you can understand the economic cycle. So some clown boy professor who actually believes the Kool-Aid he's mixing can tell you about this. It's not true. It's not true.
Isn't it amazing how all the history that they show us in these economic cycles starts around the same time as the Fed?
Yeah, it is. And then you get Keynesian thought right before that. Look, they've been very clever. They've been you have to admit that. They have been just brilliant. But this goes back on through the ages, well before the Brits or even Britain. And it goes to the fall of Rome. But I guess this gets us back at the end here to Scripture. There is an evil in this world because it is of this world, and it cares not for you. And if you don't believe me, go look at over 2 million deaths in Ukraine. and you can't even get a mainstream reporter to talk about that. The horrors are untold, and we're shielded from the most egregious things happening. That's why I think you are going to see the Epstein stuff come into full focus. I just think that it probably wasn't part of the sequencing of the president's strategy to have it be coming in too early, because this is a sequenced war that he is waging.
Yeah.
Could be wrong on that, but
Okay.
I know that the base is upset about it. I'm upset about it too. There's so much more than just the nastiness that you're seeing in these early releases. But God sees all of it. God sees everything. And hopefully God is inspiring the true patriots and leaders in our nation to follow his commands. You know, one of the things I try to say every time before I go on the air is, your words, not mine.
Yeah.
My words are not nearly as important as getting us shaped by what is a very key and important battle in this world that God created. And I don't know if it's the big one. I have a lot of Christians telling me it is, but okay, great. I mean, you're smarter than me. But what I do know is that I'm called to be joyful and cheerful,
Yeah.
and not have fear. Live abundantly if I can, to inspire others, to bring them up, to make sure that we're not dizzy and drunk with false enthusiasm, but that we have a clear and sober view of threats, and we acknowledge those, and then we have a great relationship with our Creator, and then the second commandment is as important as the first, which is love one another as you would love yourself.
Yeah. Well, General, it's just such a joy to talk to you, because I feel like you see things in a way that helps you really have put things in perspective for me today. I know you've done that for our viewers as well, and I just really appreciate the perspective you bring. And as you were just talking about kind of what our place in this is, I mean, even with your friends who think this is, we're here at the end, the Lord told us to occupy until he comes. So we need to be on the battlefield up until it's over. We don't need to cede 1 inch of ground. That's exactly what got us into this pickle in the first place, ceding ground.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're humans, and so it's easy
Yep.
for us to lose our way. Shiny objects
right.
are always interesting. I'm sure I'll see an airplane online today, and I'll go, "What's that? Maybe I should look at that for a while." But you got to come back to center.
It's true. It's true. Well, thank you for spending some time with us. I already can't wait for our next conversation.
Me
And
too.
just God bless you. Thank you for what you're doing, and for being a voice of steady truth for people who are in the midst of this war, and, maybe not very accustomed to navigating war.
Well, thank you. It's always an honor to come with you. And next time we'll have Chris here, and he can tell us
Yeah.
all about slaying the dragons down in Baton Rouge. And every day we'll learn a little bit more, and every day we're getting closer to better times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And to all the viewers, we will be back here at 10 in the morning tomorrow, 10 Central, For the Love of Freedom. I'll have Adam Hardage with me to talk about his book about AI and raising kids in a world of AI. So look forward to seeing you then. And General, we'll be talking to you soon. God bless you, sir.
God bless.
Meet the world's first living, full-spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Ness's hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world-class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us.
Cayo Fuego, it's just unbelievable. Whether it's the flame grilled carne asada or a signature mango margarita, I had one of those too. They're serving up a literal feast of freedom at Cayo Fuego. It's just extraordinary. I love the owners, Andres and Jose. They run such a great restaurant. The service is extraordinary. The atmosphere is great. So if you're in Pineville in the Alexandria area or passing through, or if you live there, go to Cabo Fuego and tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.